With the 2024 NBA draft fast approaching, Bronny James is the target of a lot of NBA teams hoping to bring in LeBron for at least one season. And with the Celtics having 2 first-round picks in the draft, is it a possibility that LeBron James could be a Boston Celtic? We'll be talking about that, but first, the Celtics still have a roster spot to fill, and there's still a lot of big names out there left to be signed, like Blake Griffin, TJ Warren, and many, many more, so we'll be talking about all of that on this edition of Celtics Digest. Bruce, as we get into this free agency frenzy for Boston, I want to do a quick reminder to everyone watching, the hundreds, if not thousands of people who are going to see this video who are not subscribed. You're part of the 98% of people who are not subscribed. Hit it now. You won't regret it. We should be your hub for Boston Celtics news. Now, Bruce, a guy on the Celtics subreddit by the name of Georgia for Life did up a great list of potential options for the final roster spot for the Boston Celtics, and he did up a nice list of bigs and wings, and there's a lot of big names here. Feel free to pause the video and take a look at some of these guys with the pros and cons if you're watching now, but when you see this list, Bruce, when you look at the players that are still available for the Celtics, is there anyone there that stands out to you that could be a really great fit?
Yeah, personally, when I look at the bigs on that list, there are 2 that jump out to me. Obviously, Blake Griffin, bringing him back, I think would be solid for the Boston Celtics, as we've already seen him play on our team, and he had a solid job being our third center. I also think that JaMychal Green would be a great pick for the Celtics as well. He could also have the possibility of playing the 4, which I think adds some versatility to the depth of the bench for the Celtics. And I think with his age being a little bit younger than some of those centers, think that that would impact the Celtics for keeping him a little bit long term. And then looking at the wings, one guy that I mentioned in another video that I really like the Celtics to get would be TJ Warren. I think that he could provide some depth at the wing position. Even though we just got Svi Mikhailuk, I think adding TJ Warren as a defensive piece for this Celtics team would be solid. Maybe to help out Jordan Walsh and Oshae Brissett, maybe if he could play a similar role to one of those guys, I think that that could help the Celtics at the defensive spot at the wing, as we have Sam Hauser and Svi Mikhailuk, who are more of offensive guys with shooting.
Yeah, TJ Warren can be a bit versatile. He's shown some defensive flashes, and obviously he's shown some scoring flashes too, right? In that bubble, TJ was a real thing, and you know, I see a world where he starts out, if the Celtics sign him, where he starts out as kind of like the 10th, 11th guy, and then works his way up just from his pure scoring, because we know that he has that potential, but teams are maybe straying away from him. We're not really sure why, but I think you're bang on, Bruce. I think he's a very solid depth option for Boston, because he can kind of provide a bit of everything, and you know, in a worst case scenario, he might be able to drop 20 points if Brown or Tatum are injured, or if they need to you know, take a load off, or they're not having a great shooting night. But I think my number one guy on this list would be someone you also mentioned, and well, we've talked about Blake a lot, okay? And like, I think a lot of Celtics fans just want Blake. He was great for the locker room. We know he didn't sign until October of last year because he skipped out on training camp to sort of rehab himself before signing a contract. So that could still very well happen. That might be the Celtics' plan. However, I think JaMychal Green is a great fit. Now, I don't know how much money he'd command, and I don't know if he'd want a bigger role, but JaMychal has shown that he is one of the more versatile bigs in the league. He's able to play the 4, which he might even be his best position in some cases. He's improved as a 3-point shooter throughout his career. He's not a terrible passer, and he's very versatile defensively. So while Blake really worked out well for the Celtics last year, Bruce, do you see a world where JaMychal can kind of just be a slightly younger version of Blake, but maybe could bring a lot more of what Blake does to the table?
I think that that's what the Celtics would be looking at if they were to sign JaMychal Green and bringing him in. I think that he's a better shooter than Blake Griffin is. I know that Blake Griffin has worked on his 3-point game a little bit more in the recent years, but I think that he could provide that as well. And I think that JaMychal Green, we've seen on teams like the Grizzlies, where he's had a pretty impactful role in past couple of years. So I think if he were to come over to another contending team like the Boston Celtics, who has a lot of values like the Memphis Grizzlies team, I think he could kind of buy into the same role that he had over there and bring the same skills and attributes that he was bringing over there to the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and also his last name is Green, right? Add to the list. His other guys, Gerald Green, Jeff Green. There's many, many more. So yeah, I mean, it could be a great fit. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I think the most likely case is that they're just holding out, waiting for Blake to be ready to sign a deal. But hey, you never know. But Bruce, the more interesting thing in this video, I think, while that is still very interesting and it could have an impact on this season, it's LeBron. I mean, this is not something I've really thought about. You know, not a whole lot, but you know, a tweet today kind of made the mind start going, right? The gears started turning. Like, Celtics lead say per Draft Digest, Bronny James is currently slotted at number 24 on the big board for the 2024 NBA draft. LeBron James has stated he wants to play with his son for 1 year. The Boston Celtics currently have 2 first-round picks for the 2024 draft, should the Celtics look to draft Bronny to bring over LeBron. Now, this is very interesting, okay? Like, I understand Bronny is slotted at 24, but Bruce, I think we both know, and I think a lot of Celtics fans know, he's probably going to go a lot higher than that if a team is willing to take the gamble that they might get LeBron for a year, especially a team that maybe is looking to make a playoff push that has a higher first-round pick. I know the Celtics have 2 picks. They'd be able to package them and move up in the draft if they wanted. Maybe some other teams are looking to do the same thing, but just from a pure like feeling perspective and maybe from a pure Celtics team building perspective, is this something you would be interested in? Do you think that LeBron James could be a target for Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics?
As much as I think it would be a cool story for any team to get Bronny James to pair up with LeBron, I think that the Celtics should not be looking for it, as we've seen the Celtics and LeBron not have a good history in the past couple of years.
That's putting it lightly.
Obviously, Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron was obviously a problem. Then he went to Miami and had a big problem with our big 3 creating that. And then obviously going to the Lakers, our arch nemesis, that is also a big thing. And we could be looking at a possibility of us playing him in the finals this year. So I don't really know if I'd be rooting for it. I'd be more rooting for a small market team that really hasn't seen the likes of getting LeBron, for him to come and go there with Bronny. Team maybe like Minnesota or Charlotte, maybe even Brooklyn. And possibly if the Bulls were to blow things up, I think it would be cool to see LeBron going to Chicago, kind of like Michael Jordan, like Dwayne Wade. I think that would be a cool story. And maybe LeBron could win another ring for another small market team, or like a smaller team that hasn't won in a while, kind of like he did with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that would be a good story for him and for his legacy. And to do it with his son, I think would be very, very interesting and very happy for NBA fans all around the world.
Yeah, I think you highlight the feelings of a lot of Celtics fans. It's like, look, like I understand LeBron is great, but there's been so much like conflict between the Celtics and LeBron teams throughout the many years. And I know a lot of people might jump and say, well, Shaq was a Boston Celtic and he was a Laker and all this. But the thing is, when Shaq was dominant in the NBA, the Celtics were like, those timelines didn't line up. The Celtics weren't amazing, right? It was those Antoine Walker years, Paul Pierce in the early 2000s when the Celtics were kind of struggling when Shaq was really dominating in the NBA. So that was like less of a conflict. Whereas LeBron has been in the way of the Celtics directly or indirectly for the better part of 2 decades. And it's something where it's like, yeah, it would be really cool to say, hey, LeBron played for the Boston Celtics, again, joining legends that played for the Celtics near the end of their career, like Dominique Wilkins, like Shaq, right? Like Bill Walton. So there's, he could join that exclusive club, but at the same time, I don't see a world where Brad Stevens is really going to make a jump for it. Like, I understand the Celtics have the assets, at least the picks, to make it happen in the draft, but Bruce, you gotta think that other teams are going to be looking at this draft. Other teams that may have a bunch of seconds, or maybe a future first to give up, or maybe a prospect and a future first and the 2024 first just to move up to get a chance to pick Bronny. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like if the price is steep at all, Brad Stevens is going to be like, nah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you've been saying about the price of Bronny James, we obviously haven't yet to see him play, so we don't know where he's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's projected around 24, I think that if he does play, he has the possibility of even rising up to possibly going around, 15, maybe even 12, like a right around there, 17. So some of these teams that fall around right outside the play-in tournament that are like a year or 2 away, maybe even a team like the Orlando Magic, who we possibly could see fall right around the 10th, 11th pick, they might be lucky enough to get possibly Bronny James at like a pick like 14 or 16 and be able to bring LeBron in and have an actually like contending team to see coming out of the East. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with Bronny James and LeBron teaming up.
Yeah, there's so many, right? And I don't know how many front offices are going to be willing to make that gamble, but you got to think it's more than just a few. And while Boston's had their team built perfectly, I think now, I think they're ready to push for a title. And while LeBron could do it, look, the only way I see it happening is if there's communication that's somehow not tampering, I don't know, with LeBron saying like, yeah, look, I'll sign a really cheap deal. I want to win a title with my kid while I'm still in the league. That could maybe happen. But other than that, all we can do is wait and see. But yeah, I think our opinion, Brad Stevens might stray away from the king himself. But that'll do it for this news edition of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're one of the 90+% of people who are watching that are not subscribed, we'd really appreciate if you hit the button. We have lots of Celtic content to come this season. I'm Josh Goss for my co-host Bruce Veliz. We'll catch you in the next one.